Okay, the second phase is read. Let me define read. Read is how we get information, how we absorb signals, cues, or subtle actions, and what is really happening in the surroundings. Where is the information coming from? Well, it depends if I'm sending the ball, if I'm receiving the ball, and it also depends on the external factors. So let me start with external factors. These are the ones that we cannot control. For example, the weather, the surface, the balls. Next thing that is important at the reading phase is focusing on the ball. Eyes have to be tracking the ball, and also we have to judge how good is the shot which I just played or that is coming from the opponent. Whether you're sending or receiving the ball, it is always important to track the ball. While tracking the ball, you have to read the 5 characteristics of the ball, which are direction, depth, height, spin, and speed. Next thing that is very important while tracking the ball is the trajectory of the ball. We can divide the trajectory of the ball with a pre-bounce and after bounce. The next thing that we focus on during reading phase is the opponent. There are 3 things that we concentrate on while reading the opponent. The first one is the position of the opponent. Is he behind the line or is he in front of the baseline, and so on. The second thing is how is his body? Is he off balance? Is he charging forward? Is he steady? And the third thing, we look at his racket and we concentrate on what grip he's using, what the angle of his racket is, also about his swing path.
Hey guys, let me briefly talk about the 5 characteristics of the ball. This topic always comes back and again while we are teaching young players. The 5 characteristics of the ball, unfortunately, most coaches assume that athletes are born with this ability to understand how the ball flies. I'm sorry to break this down for you, it doesn't work that way. Maybe you were an amazing athlete, maybe it came natural to you. It's not the case. This is something that has to be taught. The 5 characteristics of the ball are direction, depth, height, speed, and spin. Every single player learns them in different ways. And I'm going to give you a very simple concept. Every single time you teach progressions, you start with learning it or doing it by yourself, then you do it with somebody else, and then you can put this into the court, into the game. Let me explain. If I want to teach a child the height of the ball, the very first thing I will have him is to toss the ball at different height. High, low, medium, so he starts to understand and call it himself. Then we will do this back and forth, just with or without racket, most likely without racket at the beginning, and again calling the height of the ball. And eventually we move to the game and I have the player call the height of the ball. So that's a step-by-step progression, and that's how we teach the 5 R's. The 5 R's are not taught randomly. There is some cognitive understanding from the young players that has to be in place in order for us to move forwards in the progressions. The very first 3 things that you want to teach are direction, depth, and height. Then speed, and lastly, spin. Spin you can only teach once the player has understood how to use the racket and the pass, a topic that we will cover somewhere else, and he understands within himself how the ball is rotating. The next part that I want to talk about is the flight of the ball or the trajectory of the ball. Obviously, this will be affected by the 5 characteristics that we already spoke about before. To understand the flight of the ball, you need to understand the situation that you are in while playing the game of tennis. Am I sending? Am I receiving? Am I at the net? Am I at the baseline? And so on. There are two flights of the ball. As soon as a player makes contact with the ball gets over the net, that's the first flight of the ball, before the bounce. The moment that ball bounces, there is a second flight of the ball, and it will be affected, as mentioned before, by the 5 characteristics. So understanding, for example, when a ball flies cross court, that the second flight of the ball is going to open up diagonally instead of, or compared to a ball that flies down the line and the ball flies more straight, is something that a player has to learn, and that has to be by all means taught. Another great example on receiving the ball and understanding the trajectory of the ball is a kick serve. When that ball bounces, if it's a right-handed player, it's gonna go up and to the left. If we go on a side spin slice, the ball bounces and skips down or skips down to the right. These are very, very fine skills that have to be developed by us at the academy. Another thing that we completely missed and forget about teaching in the game of tennis, especially in relationship to the trajectory of the ball, is that it is basic to the rules of the game. If a player is not able to follow the ball, he is not able to call the ball in, call the ball out, or even position himself correctly to hit the shot. Therefore, I'm encouraging you to teach this skill as early as possible in the development of young athletes. In order to teach how to read the flight of the ball without getting into much detail in these very short videos, imagine we are on the court with the players and we give them a little coin or a tennis ball in their hands, and they have to follow the ball, and when the ball bounces, they have to place that ball. That will be progression number 1. Progression number 2 is they do the same exercise, and now they have to call the ball in or out. These very little exercises will start connecting the brain and the eyes and the ball and how to follow it. So the player starts reading the ball better. Coaches, a very simple reminder. Layers on top of layers on top of layers on top of layers. Of course, reading could get very complicated, and at some point it happens automatically. That's why we break things down so you are able to teach one and then the next one and then the other one and start combining them so the player at some point in his development can put things together automatically and read the ball the best he can. Once we go layer on top of layers and layers, you will see that we can teach and expand on concepts that connect themselves, like reading and the technique, reading and the physical part of it, reading and the tactical, which is huge. That was the second stage of the 5 R's, read. I hope you find this helpful, and let's continue with our education.